Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through chapter, just a second. Evanik, you were pressing an exclamation mark? Okay.
No, I was just getting rid of his remarks.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, that's a good idea. Let's go ahead. Please go ahead and do that. All right, let's get started. Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. We are on chapter 18. And today we are going to start with verses 67 to 73. We're going to have two readings in English, followed by Yogeshwar's thoughts on these verses. And then we're going to open it up for any questions or comments. David, go ahead.
Yes, certainly. Chapter 18, starting with verse 67. You should never disclose the science to one devoid of austerities, nor to one who is not devoted, nor to one adverse to spiritual advancement, and never anyone who is envious of me. One who promulgates this paramount of confidential secrets amongst my devotees attains transcendental devotion unto me and comes to me certainly without a doubt. No one among humanity is more dear to me than the promulgator of Bhagavad Gita, and there will never be another more dear to me than he in this world. And for one who will study this most righteous discourse of ours, I shall be propitiated by that as a performance of sacrifice of wisdom. This is my proclamation. Even the person who only listens to this with faith and without envy is liberated and will reach the elevated planetary systems of those of virtuous activities. O Arjuna, have you heard this with concentrated attention? O conqueror of wealth, has your bewilderment due to illusion been dispelled? Arjuna said, my illusion has been dispelled, O Krishna. By your grace, realization is restored to me. I am stable and all my doubts are removed. I shall execute your command.
Thank you. This is translation by Sri Aurobindo. Never is this to be spoken by thee to one without ascesis, nor to one that is not devoted, and not to him who does no service, nor yet to him who despises and belittles me, lodged in the human body. He who with the highest devotion for me shall declare this supreme secret among my devotees, without doubt he shall come to me. And there is none among men that does more than he what is most dear to me. And there will be none else dearer to me in the world. And he who shall study this secret discourse of ours, by him I shall be worshipped with the sacrifice of knowledge. The man also who, full of faith and uncarping, listens to this, even he, being liberated, attains to the happy worlds of the righteous. Hath this been heard by thee, O son of Pritha, with a concentrated mind? Has thy delusion caused by ignorance been destroyed, O Dhananjay? Arjun said, destroyed is my delusion. I have regained memory through thy grace, O infallible one. I am firm, dispelled are my doubts. I will act according to thy word. Yogeshwar?
Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrusave vachyam na cha mam yobhyasuyati. Krishna has laid out. There is the section whereby Krishna says, this is more secretive than any secret that I have told anybody or even exists in this world. Then he has told Arjuna that this is the most secretive. So there were levels of that Krishna took Arjun from. Now, at this point, Krishna is saying that this which I've told to you is so important and is so subtle that when somebody wants to put their hands on it, normally what they'll come up with is not the subtlety of it, but what it looks like when it is just on the surface. That is why Krishna is saying that you should not even tell this to somebody who is not full of austerity. Why austerity first? Because what Krishna is doing here is he may have all the other qualities, let's say, because the 4 qualities said in this verse. He may have all the other 4 qualities. But then, if he does not have the determination within himself to pass through the fire of austerity, to allow the fire to mold him into something new, then it will be like sowing seeds onto a rock. They will never be planted. They will never grow. They will never sprout out. That is why Krishna is saying that you should not tell anybody this if he doesn't have the determination to take it through, to become this. It should not just be something that somebody just takes in and doesn't change him. For Krishna, this is something that when you tell somebody, that person must have changed from apadatala mastaka. That's what they say in Sanskrit. Like he must have changed from the head to toe. There's nothing of him that has remained the same. That is when you can tell him. Now, that means that Krishna had seen all these qualities in Arjuna before he revealed all this towards Arjuna. There's also something else interesting about Indian culture, whereby everything is written in the scriptures, yes, but then there are these some little things that only the guru tells his shishya, and when only when they're ready for it, only when they can take it in. For example, Dronacharya, even something like a siddhi, not even jnana, let's say, something even like of material objective, they don't tell it out. For example, Dronacharya, he had this vidya of Brahmastra. He gave it in totality to Arjuna because his concentration, his determination to get onto it. Whereas his own son, Ashwatthama, however much Ashwatthama tried to get this vidya, Dronacharya didn't give it to him. And then, even giving it to him, what Dronacharya did is, because Ashwatthama just ran in and then started listening to it. Yeah. So what Dronacharya did, like in a tweak, is that just give him half of it. However much somebody wants it, he won't get it fully. That is how knowledge has been kept in the traditions. Why so now? Why keep knowledge like this? One really plain reason is that when somebody grasps onto knowledge, now even leave alone now this material possession or something to do with saying that somebody is greater than somebody else, but then something about jnana, something about the scriptures, why keep them secretive like this? knowledge should be given to everyone. Yeah? With Brahmastra, we can understand that it could destroy a large part of the world. That's why it was secretive like that. Why knowledge? Knowledge doesn't destroy. Then I would say that then you have not understood knowledge, because even more than Brahmastra can destroy, knowledge even destroys more if it's not understood in the right way. What happens is knowledge itself, it is so subtle, like this knowledge that Krishna has given Arjuna, it's so subtle that however much the Gita is in front of us, we don't get it. Now, why Krishna is telling Arjuna not to give this knowledge to anyone when he is not wanting to change, wanting to pass through the fire of austerity, is that when that person will just receive the knowledge, it will be taken at face value. It won't be taken at its subtlety. Another thing as well is that only when the Shishya shows the grace or the determination to pass through, or even the Sharanagati towards that knowledge, not towards the Guru, but towards that knowledge that I really want this knowledge. That is when he's able to keep it within himself. That is when, like memory in past times in India, it was like when a person tells you something, first of all, they were this in a poetic form. That's why it was easy to remember. But even more than easy to remember, there was this hunger for jnana. There was this hunger for knowledge that was intrinsic, that when somebody tells you something, you remember it as it was, like no word here or there. That was how much hunger they had for knowledge. That is why remembrance was like a given in India. Like when somebody tells you something about the Vedas, you just remember it. There's nothing like you even have to remember it. No, you remember it. It's normal to remember it. That's how knowledge is. Because there is the value the Shishya has for the knowledge. That value you have for the knowledge, it allows you to go deep within that knowledge rather than just going on to face value. And then what happens when you don't have like the desire to change yourself is that you'll have that knowledge in front of you. What you'll do is, because you don't want to change, you'll try to change the knowledge. You'll try to twist the knowledge that this is what it means. Because I don't want to get to the gist of the knowledge, what is behind the knowledge, I will change the knowledge as it fits me on face value. And there's one thing that is interesting with Sanskrit as well, is that anything that can be said, it can be said in layers, whereby if a person, like at least a person who starts to understand, maybe a person who has reached like 15 years of age, will understand at one level. It's fine for him. And then it will go deeper as he goes. That is how Sanskrit itself is measured upon. The same words, but they'll give you something deeper. If you have the determination within yourself, if you want to change yourself, then you'll get it from the scriptures. And that is only when this knowledge should be parted onto you. And then Krishna is going deeper now. Yeah, that then a person who doesn't have devotion should not be given this knowledge. One thing is na tapaskaya, another thing is na bhaktaya. Two things are different. A person who can bow down to this knowledge, who can pay respect to this knowledge, person who, having received this knowledge, will keep it as it is. Now, this is a bhakta, and a bhakta is a loving kind of person. He doesn't want to change the other person. Rather, he would change for this other person. That's how love is. Yeah. However, it is now not in the same way as we understand love. However, in the deeper respect of love, we can see that when you love somebody, you would rather change for that person rather than changing the person. That is what love means. And then another thing is that when you're in the emotion of love, even just knowing that you're in that emotion, everything just sticks to you. Like that person, how he is, those values within that person, they just come onto you. You don't need to bring them onto you. Like if there is love between Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna, yes, has done something to impart that knowledge onto Arjuna. But then Arjuna has also done something. Don't forget that he has brought up that situation of love between themselves, the mitrata, the friendship that they have between themselves. By that aspect, Arjuna is attracting the gunas, the qualities that Krishna has within himself. So even so many things that Krishna didn't say were just transferred onto Arjuna without a statement. And that happens in love. Like there's no statement needed, but you understand, you get to the level that Krishna is wanting to talk to. This will help a person to go through all the different levels that knowledge has. Nacha shushrusave vacham, nacha mam yobhyasuyati. And then a person who doesn't want to listen to this surely shouldn't be told this. Now, Krishna is coming like slowly down in step by step within these 4 steps. A person who may have bhakti, he may want to know this knowledge. And then he also has a loving kind onto me, but he doesn't want to change himself. He doesn't have the determination to go through the fire. He shouldn't be told. And then he may want to listen. He may also like have a tilt towards me. He may not be saying something bad about me, but then he doesn't love me in that way. He should not be told. Then Krishna is saying that he may not say something bad about me. For example, Shishupal was saying, or Duryodhan was saying, he may not be saying something bad about me. But then if he doesn't want to listen to this, if he doesn't have the hunger intrinsic, like, I want to know what this is. For example, in chapter 8, we realize that in chapter 7, Krishna said that there is Brahma, there is Adhyatma, there is Adhiyagya. Then Arjuna has this want that, what is it? Kim tad Brahma kim Adhyatmam? He asks the question, what is Brahman? What is this Adhyatma that I need to know? Then Krishna reveals it to him layer by layer. If a person doesn't want to listen, shouldn't be told. There's also another aspect to this, is that if a person doesn't want to listen right now and you tell them, there is a way that he will shy away from it at this point in time. And if he shies away from it right now, he'll never want to get back to it. Rather, allow his experience to unfold and allow his experience to demand something more from life than is. Then he will automatically turn towards this knowledge. That is when he should be given this knowledge, when he wants to listen to it. And then he will be able to take it in. Because this, just even taking it in, Krishna is saying it's not enough. But then if he doesn't want to listen and he won't even take it in, then what's the use of giving him that knowledge? That is why Krishna is taking it in levels. then nacha mam yobhyasuyati. Then if a person doesn't even want to listen to me, that's fine. But then if he's talking about me, he's talking about me in a different way, about bad qualities that may not even exist, but then just wants to show that these bad qualities exist. For example, Shishupala or Duryodhana shouldn't be given this knowledge. At different levels, we can see what would happen if this knowledge was given to somebody. But if this knowledge was given to somebody like Duryodhana, first of all, they wouldn't even listen. But then another thing that would happen is they would pick onto some 2-3 words of Krishna and then say, even Krishna said this, then we should do it. But then he's like picking at the surface, like Krishna said this. Krishna said Satya, for example, in chapter 16, Satya is a Devic form. Then when it turns towards Yudhishthira and he has to say that Ashwathama hatohata to Dronacharya, then Duryodhana will say, just having listened to that part, and then Duryodhana will say, even Krishna said, Yudhishthira should not have said that. Like that's adharma now. So that's how they would see this. What is dharma, adharma? Even Yudhishthira himself, like that is staying like in the guhayam pravishta. Dharma is something that is gahana, is something that can't be just taken at face value, something that takes you on a journey from your karma towards your mental assumptions, your mental like intellect. Then it takes you past that. It takes you towards your swabhava. Then even you know that this is your swabhava. Then your dharma takes you even past that swabhava. It takes you to who you really are. Who you are. And when I say who you are, it takes you towards Brahman. That is dharma. That is what Krishna is saying, that a person who reaches dharma reaches to the highest value of himself. He has gotten it. Now, just after having said this verse, Krishna is saying, then do not shy away from telling it to other people. You should say it to other people, those who deserve it. Ya imam paramam goyam madbhakteshva vidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mame vaishyatya sanshayah. If I'm telling you that do not tell it to such people, because that's the first boundary that should be met, right? Do not tell it to such people. But then Krishna is saying, if I've met that boundary, then don't say that I will not say it to anyone now. However, tell it to the people who deserve it. That should be done. The parampara of Gyan should always be maintained. There should be no place whereby it cuts off. It should always flow. Whom should you say it to? However, mad bhakteshu abhidhasyati. That one quality should be in principle, like it should be there. There is no way that one quality is not there. However much he's wanting or he has the determination to go through, but if he doesn't have the love towards the knowledge, then he will not be able to understand all those levels that are there beneath the knowledge. He may just want to change at the forefront and not change at the beneath. When Krishna is telling Arjuna that, he's saying that, tell my bhaktas, when they know this, because what happens is they know it because you're trying to allow that flower to its most, which is the other people. when you're telling them, even you realize that this flower, there is something missing still for it to blossom in full. What is missing? You realize yourself. For example, what another flower needs to flower, even you need to flower. The same thing. When you give it to somebody else, even yours, even your own knowledge will increase. Now, when I mean knowledge increasing, I don't mean intellectually only, or it's easier to relate to other people. No, you're not practicing relaying to other people. What you're practicing is you getting towards Brahman, and it helps you in that. It helps you to the core, because when you're showing somebody else the light, you also, maybe when you're, because life is not the same. It's not like when you see the light once, it never gets away. It's like a flash, it comes and sometimes it even goes away. What happens at that time? When you're telling other people, sorry. This was going fast.
Okay, let me just talk about one thing while he's coming back. So the most interesting point here is the point that the person who is listening, person who deserves the knowledge, has to be deserving. That's what Krishna is saying, that he needs to be deserving in his action. He must be prepared to have the discipline, to actually work for it. And he also needs to have the right heart. So he needs to have the right thing in his heart and right thing in his action. So that's a very deep point. This is also a point that you can see in, let me just pause here for a second. Let's go. Folks, you on this point, if you would like to discuss the verses so far, please go ahead and type an exclamation mark. Joe.
Yeah, I think that this is so important on so many different levels. I think it gets to, it connects to the themes that we've been talking about as far as grace and how do you arrive at grace.
Mm-hmm.
And then part of this process is detachment from the material world and the willingness to sacrifice something that it means so much to you, that this is something that knowledge, this secret, this understanding is you're willing to give up everything for it. And then you can see this in the way that you've talked about knowledge in the past in Indian culture, that it's more important than eating.
Yes.
In certain cases. And you've used those terms.
Yep.
And that is that's profound, because there's an inherent goodness that goes along with that. Sometimes people just do the right thing for the right reasons. And that's something that I think about with this. It's excellence for excellence sake. And I was having a similar conversation with somebody about this recently. But this willing to endure these discomforts for knowledge says a lot about the individual themselves. It says that they're willing to accept what they hear. The question that I think I would like to maybe at some point explore.
Let's do one thing. Let me comment on this one, and then
Yeah.
you can put the question in the.
Sure.
So
Okay.
let me see here. Yogeshwar is back. So we'll continue with this. We'll start with Yogeshwar. Give me just a second here. Hold on. Where is Yogeshwar? Has he joined?
Yeah, I see him.
Okay, give me just a second here. Yogeshwar.
Unmute. Oh yeah, sure.
Yes, go ahead.
There. Sure. So what Krishna here is saying that when you're taking somebody through the path, you also walk the path with him. And this walking the path towards Brahman. Sorry, you want to say something?
Can we do one thing? People were
Sure.
making comments about the verses so far. So is it okay if people make the comments and then we will continue with the rest?
Yeah, it's fine. It's
Okay.
perfect.
Go ahead, Paul. Paul, Joe, you wanted to ask a question, and then we can go to Paul. Joe.
Yeah, I was just a little bit, maybe a point of clarification as far as how knowledge is dangerous in certain situations. I understand that, you know, that if you tell somebody a secret and they're not necessarily accepting or not in the right place to accept it, how does it then become something that's dangerous? I do understand how like a virtue can become dangerous without wisdom, but maybe if you could just explain that a little bit more in detail.
Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yes, so what happens is because knowledge is sukshmatara, it's subtle. Knowledge is not something that can be gotten at face value. When somebody wants to impart knowledge to you, the only way to do it is through words. Now, what happens is when we use words for communication, there's a way whereby when the other person really doesn't want to understand you, he won't understand you. However well you arrange the words, however well you do the communication, they will extract their own meaning out of it. And we can see that in so many ways, even with philosophers. Yeah, sometimes we can see that they said something that was really right, like you can see it how right it was, but then what happens is when it gets onto generations, when it gets even to the next generation, like the person who is reading it, and how it's interpreted is, you can see there's a deviation from it everywhere. For example, like just imagine the way that we know these texts, like maybe the Gita, the Bible, the Tao Te Ching. We know this, for example, how I knew the Bible and you may have known the Gita was something different. Yeah. When I was introduced to the Bible when I was young, there was this way it was introduced to me that it was, it's fine, it's okay, but it's just for the old times. That's how it's meant for. And then all these parables within, all these metaphors within, you just take them at the value that you have seen them. You cannot get deeper into it because you're not tied to it. You're not you're not tied to it, but even there is no hunger for the knowledge that is within it. Then you don't get to it. Then what happens is you will put the rituals on top of it, and from the top, then it will look like all weeds. There's nothing within it. That's how it will feel. Like that's how even in the Western world we know that all these texts have been they've been interpreted fine, but then how they practiced something different. That deviation is what Krishna is saying, how knowledge can be. What happens then is that a person who is believing in Hinduism and Krishna, what he will say is that Krishna had said this, so I should abide by it. But then he doesn't know the subtleness of it. He doesn't know where it comes from, how it should evolve within you. Rather, it's just at face value that this is what should happen. And so many times it's not about what Krishna is saying, but it's about how I am seeing the Gita or how I am seeing the Bible, that how I'll interpret it.
Thank you. Next up is Paul. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, so glad I joined tonight. My comments are all along the same lines that we just were talking about here. I think it was David, when I first joined, before you guys had fully started, he was talking about the modern New Age movement and how things are unfolding in some way. But a quick story that makes me show you how I interpret the things we're talking about is there was a place in Cambridge that I live in the Boston area that was offering what they called secular meditation. So my point is, they made a very specific goal of extracting from the Gita, from all the traditions we're talking about here, the systems of yoga, the systems of meditation, the health practices, everything, but so you could make a big company and make $1 million. So that's how I was horrifying actually to me, but that's how I interpret the danger from a very personal story experience. But then what Srikant is so nobly trying to do, here's my sort of question about all this is, do you then go, well, I'm going to just embrace all of this one tradition, the Gita, everything Arjuna and Krishna are talking about, but not take into account the thousands of years that have passed and all the other systems that have been thought about? Or do I somehow try to integrate them? And I see Srikanta is trying to do the latter in a very noble way, but the danger of that path is the danger we just were talking about, is how I see it. And I appreciate the deep dive Srikant's willing to take into the tradition from the view of those who practice it, not some analytic Western look. So these are all the very important things I like to keep in mind, and this is reinforcing. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate that very much. A short answer is, what we are trying to do is that we are trying to do deep dives into each of these works to try to imbue the spirit of it. I mean, the point that Yogeshwar was making is that most practitioners actually just take the rituals. They do not go deep enough to get the spirit of it. And if you do get to the spirit of it, you actually find something which is timeless. And though that integrated with modern times integrates very well because it is timeless, it is applicable anywhere. But if you do not go deep enough, then what you're left with are rituals. And those are not eternal. So then integrating them with modern times is actually not going to work very well. And one of the ways in which we are trying to do this is to make deep dives into multiple traditions, like Bhagavad Gita, like Tao Te Ching, like the Gospel of John, and trying to go deep enough. And if you go deep enough, you actually start to see commonalities. And that's where most of the interest is. What we're going to do, Joe and Paul, we're going to continue with this, but I want to finish up because we have certain time thing. I want to finish up to 73, and then we will take all the questions. Please keep track of all your questions. We will take all of them. Yogeshwar, go ahead.
Sure. न च तस्मान् मनुष्येषु कश्चिन्मे प्रियकृत्तमः भविता न च मे तस्माद् अन्य प्रियतरो भुवि. And a person who takes the other onto the same path that he has walked, Krishna is saying that न च तस्मान् मनुष्येषु कश्चिन्मे प्रियकृत्तमः. I do not hold any other person more beloved than that person. Because what happens is, even taking yourself through the path is so hard. It is You have to pass through that fire. And it's like when gold has gone through that fire, all the impurities are separated. Only the gold remains. However many impurities it may have had at the beginning, it becomes pure. What happens is when you want to go through that path, it is that hard. You have to get to that temperature, that tapa that you need. Now, taking the other person through the same path, the other person may be willing to some extent, maybe, but then does he have the same grasp onto the knowledge? Maybe not. Does he have the same bhakti that you had when you started? Maybe not. Then what you have to do is lay a foundation, maybe even lay a foundation that is even more lenient towards that person rather than just yourself. Now, when you realize that you can take him through that lenient foundation, maybe you were not given that foundation, but if you can provide it to somebody else, and if that person is now able to get to that path towards Brahman, Krishna is saying that Bhavita anacha me tasmad anya priyataro bhuvi. Nobody else will be more beloved on this earth than that person who can take another person through the path. Because this path is normally said as like one way, and that pedestrian path that only has the space for one. Sometimes even moving your two legs between this path is really hard. That is how narrow it is. Now, taking another person with you, how much care you have to take for the other person, it shows how much you revert to Brahman, not to the other person, because how much you revert to Brahman is how much you'll be able to take the other person towards Brahman. Adhyeshyate cha ya imam dharmyam sambadamavayoh jnana yagyena tenaham ishtasyamiti me mati. A person who studies this dialogue between myself and you, how will I take that person? He has done jnana yagya fully. And that's how I'll take it. Ishtasyam is also beloved to me because he has studied this. This is like Krishna is coming to the culmination now. It's coming to the conclusion. One thing that we should note is Krishna is now telling Arjuna the last bits. Like this is the mahima of the whole scripture. This is what it means to study the whole scripture. And when will you know the meaning of these words, of these verses, is when you have taken Gita step by step, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. That is when you'll be able to know the depth of this. Krishna is not just saying, like, read the Gita and I will take it as Jnana Yagya. Krishna is not only saying, like, take it intellectually and I'll take it as the Jnana Yagya, but take it as we have taken it. Take it experientially. And Krishna will say that he has done the Jnana Yagya, that I have taken into account in all the chapters. Not only study, Krishna is going on that even listening to it. Shraddhavana nasuyascha shnuyadapiyo naraha sopi mukta shubhan lokat prapnuyat punya karmanam. A person who also listens to it, and not only listening to it, Krishna is putting like is categorizing the listening. So you don't only listen to something in Indian philosophy itself or Indian tradition itself. You don't listen to it. You listen to it, one, anasuya, means you do not hold something against the scripture. That's the first thing. And then, not only that, because what happens is when you don't hold anything against the scripture, what happens is that you're just there. You don't have any love within you. You don't have any grace within yourself. You don't have any attraction towards the scripture. Krishna is saying, not only that, don't just be like in the middle, like you do not love the scripture, you do not hate the scripture. Don't just be there in the middle. Krishna is saying, don't hate it, but also be shraddhavan towards it. Have the shraddha that it can take me to another dimension. It can take me to different levels of being. When will you have that shraddha? Is when somebody can actually take you to another level. If you realize that there are steps that I can climb, when you realize that is when you've climbed one or two steps of the same, then you realize that maybe there's only not this one or two, there may be even more ahead that I need to climb. That is what Shraddha is. Because you've taken the path, you're on the path, now you know that there's something ahead. Maybe I've not seen it, but there's something. And when you listen to it, when that listening, when that sort of listening happens, Krishna is saying, only by listening to it, you become mukta. All the bounds of attachment, all the bounds of desires just fall. You don't even need to make them fall. Just allow them to fall and they will fall. And not only that, he will get to my Brahma Dharma, my Paragati. What Krishna holds that as is, he is not of this world anymore. He is of another world. Even a person who is living in this world but gets to that level is not in this world. He's in another world altogether. And there are also other traditions that hold that when you're looking at Brahma Dharma, never look at it as something different from this world. It is here and now. Like here, they call it Akshardhama. In the tradition I read it, they call it Akshardhama. Akshardhama is here, right now. There's nowhere else you're going to look for it. A person who can see Akshardhama here has really seen what the Gita means, has really seen what Brahman means. Because as we know, Brahman is here within this manifest, not something
I
that
just
is
want to
totally
add,
different.
I just want to add,
Sure.
see, Dham means home. So it's
Yeah.
this is the home. This world is the home of Brahma. That's
Yeah. And that too is Akshara, meaning it doesn't fade away.
yes,
In
it's
a way,
eternal. Yeah, it's the home of
yeah.
eternal.
Yes. So that, when they're saying that in this world, if you can see that, then you've really known what Brahman is. You've really known what Atman is. You've gotten to the depths. Now, there is something that Krishna is doing here. He's asking Arjuna that, have you listened to this? And this is how he's asking. Kachideta shrutam partha tvayaiకాగ్రేణ chetasa kachidajnana sammoha pranashtaste dhananjaya. One thing that Krishna is doing here is, do you realize that you have gotten to another level? Because now there is one part that we can know, that Krishna definitely has known that Arjuna has come to his conclusion, like he has realized it. Because a person who has gone to that level, he knows when the other person has reached. But there is also giving the other person the realization that now you've reached. Because he may still want to, like, he may still be wondering, like, have I reached? Have I not reached? Like, so Krishna is now, one thing he has done is laid out the conclusion. He's laid out the Mahima, and that is always done at the end of any scripture, not in the middle. Krishna has already put his conclusion at the base, realizing that Arjuna has reached, realizing that Arjuna has like gotten to it, gotten to Brahman. Now he's asking, now this is what love means towards a friend. Have you listened to this with a sharp mind, like ekagra mind, a mind with attention, full attention, not deviating to other places? And then kachida jnana sammoha pranashtaste dhananjaya. Has your ignorance and your delusion, have both of them just faded away? Now, the point in time when Krishna is asking this question is really queer, because he has already laid out the conclusion and now asking this question. Rather, what Krishna would have done is first ask this question, get the answer that yes, now my delusion has now been like dissolved. Now Krishna would have put down the conclusion. However, one thing to note here is that Krishna knows Arjuna has reached there. Because Krishna has reached, he can know when Arjuna has reached. Why he's asking Arjuna this question is for Arjuna to realize that when he looks within himself, then he realizes, oh yes, I have already reached there. Until he introspects, he will not realize where he is, where Krishna has taken him through all these chapters. Because Arjuna is a person who is always looking outside onto Krishna, is looking upon Krishna. When he finds Brahman, he will find Brahman in Krishna. So Krishna has to tell Arjuna that realize this within yourself. You have also reached.
Can I add something? This is analogous to this story of Arjun and Dronacharya. Like Dronacharya asks all the students, are you ready? It is that of saying, okay, do you think, do you know that you have gotten it, that you are ready to now shoot? So yes, go ahead.
And then Arjuna uvacha nashto moha smrite labdha tvat prasadan maya chuta sthitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava. My delusion has dissolved, Arjuna is now saying, because he has seen within himself. At what stage am I? Like, this is just at another level. I'd never understood this before. And he's saying this, just this one sentence condensed. So condensed, it has everything that Gita has to say. Nashto moha. That is one thing. Delusion is gone. What happens after delusion is gone? Smriti labdha. I have gotten the memory of it. Now, what Smriti is translated as memory in English. But to get to the minute part is that how does Arjuna get memory out of this? It's not the memory of what Krishna is telling him, the words. No, it's not the memory of the words. It's not memory of something that Arjuna has experienced in this world before. No. But it is memory of himself. That is what Indian tradition holds, that when you get to Brahman, it's not something that was not there before. It's something that was already there. However, you're just reminded about it. It is about getting to know who you truly are, the Brahman who you truly are. And that smriti, it comes after your delusions, after your ignorance has just been dissolved, after it's just gotten away, after that veil has just been uplifted, you see through, you get to know who you truly are. And one very important aspect of this is he realizes that I did not get to this on my own. I could not have passed through all these delusions, all these questions, all this sanshaya on my own. He says, Tvat prasadan maya chuta. I have gotten all through this by your grace. And by grace, you realize that he's not only meaning Krishna telling him the whole of the Gita, but Krishna himself pouring himself onto Arjuna. And this happens when in the bhav of Guru Shishya only, mainly. You can never pour yourself onto somebody else until there is a Shishya bhav, there's a Guru bhav between you. And this aspect is mainly like how India, like how Indian tradition takes it and how modern India takes it is totally different. And then how I have seen it in the West is totally different. Now, when the West approaches this, sees this, like, I'm not talking about the people I'm talking to, but how the general view I've gotten about it through reading the books about the West is that when you talk about Tvat Prasada, like the grace, it's like as if you don't have to do anything now. You just lay on the bed and everything will happen because prasada is there, the grace is there, and you don't have to do anything. Why do that now? Because if I do that, then I am becoming tamasic. That's how it is viewed. I am now retrieving. I'm not going ahead with life. I'm not facing life. That is one way of seeing it. Another way of seeing it is the modern Indian way of seeing it, is that since actually putting it in practice now, since I don't like the Brahman will do everything for me. Even I don't have to do anything because Brahman is there within me. I will not do anything. That is what happens at one level of Tvat Prasada. And another level is because of seeing that, because that is happening within within some people, within a group of people. Then the other group of people, they say that we don't want to ascribe that grace to anybody. That doesn't exist at all. It is only Purusharth that exists. So these are two different ways of seeing it. However, get deeper into it, whereby all your free will exists, all your Purushartha, meaning all your determination exists. Still you realize that I have not gotten it through my determination. I have not gotten it through whatever I have done all through my life. I have gotten it through the grace of Brahman. However much you do, when you get to it, when you get to Brahman, Brahman is something that you realize that it has revealed itself to you rather than you getting towards it. So many levels of understanding it, whereby you may go wrong. But if you do not get to the deepness of the ocean, you always feel that the ocean is only made of the waves. Sthitosmi gata sandeha karishye vachanam tava Another thing also here is sthitosmi gata sandeha. I am at this point that I am still and I can stay where I am within this Brahman. I am sthita, what we call sthita prajna. Right now I am sthitosmi. And all the sandeha have just gone away. When this happens, Arjuna is saying, Karishye vachanam tab. I'll do as you say. Also here, like doing as you say has so many levels of it. There is this level of, like, as I had pointed out in the presentation, the level of whereby somebody who is in bhakti, like in the modern Indian world, who is in bhakti, says that I will do anything you say out of the crudeness of his knowledge. Like he doesn't have that knowledge. And he just says, because I don't have the knowledge and somebody will not impart it onto me, I'll just do as they say. Just that. And I had used a word which I've really forgotten. If Shrikant can remind me about that. It was called, it was about Andhashraddha that they ascribed to the gurus in this time.
I don't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, that's fine. About Andhashraddha, yeah, that's what happens when Karishya Vachanam Tava is just gotten onto itself, like just extracted from the Gita.
Sure. Andhashraddha means blind faith.
Yeah, blind faith. But there was another, like, I don't remember the word. There was also
English word you're saying?
Yeah, English word.
Okay. It's
We'll get it in the presentation.
it is credulous, basically
Yeah,
people who
exactly.
go with whatever is being said just because it is being said by the other person.
Yeah, sure. Credulousness, that. Sure. So that is one type of seeing it. And then when the West sees it in India, it is basically there. I'm not saying it's not there. In modern India, it exists. When the West sees it in modern India, they say that doing what somebody else says is credulousness. It's not what should be done. So what should you do is do as you will, because you have free will. So do as you will. There is one aspect there, they're right, that what is happening is wrong. But Karishya Vachanam Tava itself is not wrong. That's what you also have to get to. When Arjuna is saying that I will do as you say, Arjuna is saying it from the depths of knowledge. He's saying it that I will do as you say, not because you say it, because if I still had a question, I would have asked it like I asked in chapter 8, like I asked in chapter 3, like I asked in chapter 5. I would have asked it. This is out of knowledge that Arjuna is realizing that what Krishna is saying is really attuned to Brahman, because Arjuna has reached Brahman. When does Karishya Vachanam Tava happen? Is when you reach that experience of realize that what the other person was saying, one, it was for you to reach, and another, even when you've reached Brahman, it helps you with your karma in the world. Because these things were not two different things, like reaching Brahma and you being interactive with the world. It's one and the same thing. That is when you realize that Karishya Vachanam Tava has something deep within itself, not just on the top, as we realize it, as it is, but something deep whereby you have the knowledge. Now, since you've received the knowledge, since you've read a lot, since you've understood all that has to be, then you realize that actually what Krishna is saying, he has a point. Not even that he has a point only now, taking it further, that you realize he has the Brahman that he has brought me to. And since that Brahman is one, I am able to do what he says, because it is the same Brahman within me, it is the same Brahman within him. That is where Karishya Vachanam Tava lies. not just on the top.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. So I'll make a couple of comments and then we'll open it up for questions about these verses, about this culmination of Gita, and then about any other general questions. I want to point out where Gita started and where it has ended up. Gita starts with Arjun, who's completely distraught, who has dropped his bow and arrow. And he's saying, I don't know what to do. I'm completely confused. These emotions are raging in me. I don't know what's the right thing to do. And he has stopped action. He's a man of action. He has stopped action. He's in emotional turmoil. He's completely confused. That's where Gita starts. Look at where it has ended up. He's saying, now I am sthita, an idea of sthita prajna. I am now acting from my core. He says, Arjun said, destroyed are my delusions. I have regained the memory through thy grace. I am firm, dispelled of my doubts. I will act according to thy word. So Krishna has taken Arjun through this journey where he is now rooted in the core of his being, of his Atma, and in Brahma. He knows what's the right thing to do. He's fully devoted to doing that, and he's ready to act. That is the entire journey. What Krishna asked, I also love how Krishna asks. He says, hath this been heard by thee with concentrated mind? Has thy delusion caused by ignorance been destroyed? This is the same as Dronacharya asking the students, are you ready? And then next step is you shoot. In this case, Arjun goes to war and wins. So it is it is completion. These are the bookends, Arjun in this state and Arjun in this state. Now, when he says, I will act according to thy word, remember the word that Krishna keeps telling him. There are many places where he says, do not listen to me. Go to the core of your being and act from it. Do not do what I tell you to do. I'm not telling you to do anything. Go to the core of your being and act from it. Now he has gone to the core of his being and he's saying, yes, I'm ready to act. And then all his action proceeds from there. All right, let's go with Evanik, Joe, and Paul. Evanik, any questions?
I was a skip, but
skip. Go ahead.
But I'll just do a quick comment.
Please, comments are welcome, folks.
Okay, so I think this last part actually reminds me of the parable of the seed where it's scattered, the farmer scattering the seed, and some of it falling on rocks, some of it falling on thorns. And the whole point is that what Yogeshwar was talking about earlier about people who are not ready to hear it. If it's not ready to hear it, it's a waste of time. And I think of also the scripture where it talks about throwing pearls to pigs, right? The pig is just going to do nothing but trample on it and destroy it. And I think that's what Paul was talking about, like certain people getting the knowledge and then using it for their own gain rather than using it for to go to Brahma. So I think in a sense, like all these different types or you know, all these different spiritual paths lead you to the same thing, which is to the core, which is to who you are. And I just want to say thank you to Yogeshwar again for taking us through this journey and really, and you too, Shrikant, for taking us through this journey and showing us what the Gita is about. And I think I've gotten so much from it, probably because I don't know. I didn't know the Gita. I still have, you know, I have all this knowledge of the Gita, but I'm sure it doesn't scratch the surface of what you and Yogeshwar knows. But I was able to take away, you know, the simple fact that you, when you're talking about Brahma, you're talking about who you are. And getting to the core of who you are is key. And I think that's the path, like that's where I think once the Gita ends is where your path begins in a sense. Because now you could go towards this core and you're always going to work toward the core of who you are. And it's a different path for everybody. So, and the last point is when Yogeshwar was talking about, you know, which was actually my question, which he answered was, when you're telling others about the light or when you're taking the people along the path, you are going along the path with them. So now that you have this knowledge and, you know, you're taking this knowledge and you're giving it to people that are looking to transform and not just do rituals and not just, you know, listen to what they heard and follow along, but to really get to the core of who they are. And then when you take them along the path, you go along the path with them. And it like sharing knowledge makes you more knowledgeable because you can see it from a different perspective from that person and you can take it to your core. So this is great. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll make one comment, and if Yogeshwar, you want to make any comments, you're welcome. I want to make a comment on what you said and what Joe said earlier. The point here is that here, the words, the concepts, the knowledge, the devotion and action are integrated. Like there is no meaning in those words. The words don't mean anything unless they are in the mind of a person with devotion, ready to do the right thing. The way in which, for example, is put in Gospel of John is that my sheep hear my voice. Other people don't even hear it. You know, it may be the words, they hear the words, they can write the words, but they don't have the spirit of the words. So in a sense, it is a secret because you have to climb to it. You know, it is raining on you. The words can rain on you like grace, but you have to want it. You have to be willing to act on it, and you have to place it above other things that will distract you from it. So both in your actions, in your emotions, and in your mind, you need to be going towards it for it to have any meaning whatsoever. So it is integrated. It is an integration of action, emotion, and thought. Thank you. Next up is Joe, followed by Paul. Folks, this is the end of Gita. Now, there is going to be a few more verses where Sanjay is going to be talking about it. So I would love to hear each and every one of you talk about what you've gotten. We're going to do a couple of overview pieces, but this is a good time to get started on that. Joe.
I mean, this has been pretty incredible, and this particular meetup has been very, very helpful on a number of levels. You know, the first thing I think of is that this is a conversation. That's critical, so that you're arriving and accepting the grace. This is a conversation between Arjuna and Krishna.
Yes.
This isn't just, I'm telling you what to do.
Yes.
That is a very, very important point. Because, and I only say that is because one of the excellent examples, one of the best examples Yogeshwar could have given is the love for a person, right? You love a person, you change for the person. You don't force the person to change for you. And that is something that is somebody that is listening, that is open, that is, and I'm trying to put this into words because I'm not going to do this justice. But if you don't change for the person, you have this expectation that something is going to happen. And that is very, very similar to what I'm thinking about when you just have rituals and you don't have context and knowledge as to what really is going on. So I have an expectation that the person's going to be this way and this is the way they're going to act. And it becomes almost ritualistic. You're not open to it. You're not, whereas as opposed to really understanding and accepting the person and integrating knowledge, then that's something, that's another level where you're accepting the grace and you're understanding, and the relationship kind of changed. And I know I'm not expressing this well, but I promise you I get it. And I thought a little bit about the example in the Gospel of John, where they're more concerned about Christ violating the Sabbath than the miracles that he's actually creating. So it's more about the rituals, more about the forms than it is the actual function of what is actually being said. And the thing is, when it's more about the function, I feel like is something that you're more, I guess you're more open as opposed to you're more open and willing to integrate than you would be if you were just having an expectation or ritual in the form. And so I know I didn't express that all that well, but I think that what we're saying here is, and part of it is, again, your willingness to sacrifice in that process, your willingness to detach from things in that process. That's another aspect of it, that's the critical component probably that I didn't include, is this willing to let go of certain things, to when you're changing, it's not comfortable. You're getting outside of your comfort zone. You're letting things go that you once thought were making you comfortable, and that's ritual. And so anyway, I'll stop there. Yeah, because I'm all over the place.
Is it all right if I request Yogeshwar to comment on the conversational aspect? Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
Yeah, please do.
Yes, so conversation it is that is going on between Arjuna and Krishna. And it's not a conversation that is one way. We can see that. Right? Whenever Arjuna has a question, he will just raise it, even though it's even in the middle, or even though Krishna is trying to make him understand one thing, he says, "Do you mean this?" Then what I was saying before was always right. Yeah, like in chapter 3, in chapter 5. And when you're open like that in a conversation, you are ready to learn in one aspect, and you're ready to say that I do not know. That is one thing also. Then there's also another aspect, that you're ready to tell the other person that I do not know, that's fine. But then I have not also understood what you have been saying. You've been telling me, that's fine, like the whole of chapter 2. But I do not understand what you're telling me, because if I put it into my context, I see that it has always made sense to me just to take sannyasa. So when you're expressing yourself like that, you're doing not one thing, like you're doing so many things at the same time. When such a conversation happens between two people, this like going above happens, going above what you know happens, rather than conversations whereby there is just this, that whether do I win or do you win. In that place, you never get to the tattva, you never get to what the essential meaning of something is. You'll always be on the winning. And that's why Krishna says, Vada pravadatamaham in chapter 10. Back there. He says that out of all the types of like conversations or anything, I am Vada. And Vada has a particular like quality whereby it is not for winning, it is not for making another person lose, it is also not like to destroy another person in terms of material or just in terms of their fame or their pride. It's not for anything about that. Vada is only for getting to know the essence of life. Then you have Vada. So you can ask a question. You may also not understand the answer. That is what Krishna is allowing us to realize, that when Krishna talks to you or when somebody is talking to you, accept the fact that I have not understood it, however much you're trying to make me understand. You need to show me a different way of understanding it. And that may happen in conversations, that's fine. But then going past that and allowing yourself to understand even past that, that is what Arjuna has done. And also allowing Krishna not only to take him through a conversation, not only to take him through an intellectual journey, but also take Arjuna through an experiential journey, right? Just in these 18 chapters. You know, Arjuna's reached an experience, not just like, oh, now my mind doesn't have any questions, that's fine. No, that's not the place. It's not that Arjuna cannot form any questions now, that's why it's okay with him. But it's the fact that he doesn't have a sandaya at all. Like he will never get any sandaya in his life now, whatever situation comes. That is what Krishna has prepared him for. Not only now, not only that, if somebody asks another question at one other point in time, he will again start measuring his, like he'll start weighing his options again. No, he just knows what his life will unfold again throughout his life.
Right. So I want to comment on this conversation. This is a very deep point. First thing you have to realize that this is a dialogue between God and man. Yet, Krishna is always treating Arjuna as an equal. Actually, there is one avatar of Vishnu, which is Narayan, which are twins, one God and one man, Nara and Narayan, who are supposed to, and Krishna and Arjuna are supposed to be avatars of that, where there is one soul passing between God and man. It is very interesting. You know, Naneshwar's commentary illustrates this very well. He says, at one point, I don't remember which adhyaya, you know, Krishna is saying, Krishna suddenly gets scared. He says, wait a minute, he's actually figuring Brahma out and he's going to become one with me. So I'm going to lose my friend because he's going to become a part of me. Then there is his another part in the 18th adhyaya. Naneshwar says, and this is, he's interpreting what Krishna is saying. Krishna is saying that when a person reaches the stage where there is a total devotion to me, then he becomes my God. So for me, he is God. Okay, so this is the same idea of namaste, of saying that the God in me greets the God in you. So that is what Krishna is saying, that Arjun is Krishna. The Brahma is there in each of us. Now you can look at the same thing in Gospel of John, when in chapter 13, when Jesus starts to wash his disciples' feet, what does he say? He said, I want to show you, the way I love my Father, I want to show you how to love like that. I'm loving you, and I want you to love each other like that. So it's the same idea, that a profound respect for an individual soul, the Atma, as being equal to Brahma, and the Atma in you and Atma in the other person. There is it has the same source, it is the same Brahma. And that is what you're conversing with, regardless of the other differences that you have. And this conversation has that beneath, that view of man and that view of interaction between people as a foundation. All right, I'd love to hear anybody else. Paul.
Yeah, well, I'm only coming out tonight with the complete new picture of what the most important question for humanity is. So minor conclusion of the evening. But and what I mean by that is
What is the question? I'm all ears.
yeah, the different types of will that are described in that same chapter, right? I don't think I'm going to get them quite right, but you can have a will, you can direct your will toward individual achievement, or you can direct your will towards meeting some sort of social, framework needs. I'm sort of using modern terms, but isn't this something like this in there? You can direct your will towards this other higher purpose. But my point is, one of the options that this talked about in the Gita there is that, well, don't tell people these things unless they're ready and they're interested and they're willing, and then do tell them. But with the modern world, we can no longer have that luxury. So we are giving everybody, and the tools of yoga, they work. You can get really strong with Hatha yoga. You can get really healthy with Ayurveda. You can get really balanced with meditative practices. The problem is if you apply that towards one of those other versions of will, you can do terrible, terrible things with those powers. So what I mean by the central question is, now that information can't be controlled like it used to, and we're basically giving everybody atomic weapons, personal ones in a way, how do we help people direct their massive access to power like they have now in a way that's going to be amenable to the human race surviving? So I'm sorry to keep such a grandiose thing. I went through the ISKCON course on the Gita probably a couple of years ago, Yogeshwar, it's like 18 weeks free course. So I went through the whole thing. So I don't want you to think I'm coming into this only looking at the last chapter and have never seen it, but I'm also no scholar. But I don't know, I'll stop there. I know, and see if anyone has any comments. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, folks. If anybody else has any comments, go ahead and type ! I would say a few things, and then I'm going to hand it over to Yogeshwar. What Gita is saying is that you have to climb up. Actually, those words mean nothing. In a sense, all the knowledge is available, but in a sense, you have to actually ask for it. Otherwise, you don't get it. So the grace is raining on you, but you have to ask for it in order to get it. So people can do things at a surface level and do some things on a surface level. Like they can certainly become healthier by doing yoga, but to actually achieve the kinds of things that Krishna is talking about, you need all those things. You need the bhakti, you need the karma, you need the jnana, you need the dhyana, you need all of it together. Otherwise, you can get some products, and that's ritual, rituals product, and that is something, but that is at a much, 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 much lower level than what Gita is talking about. So yes, you can get some things, but those are relatively less valuable, I would say. Yogeshwar, what do you think?
Yes, so there are so many levels to this, in a way that, yes, we can see that information is available to everyone, whether it's YouTube or whether it is lectures, online lectures, or everything, in a way. Information is available online through technology. What happens is, who is even able to get to that information? First of all, a person who can leave his own desires at one side. That is when he can sit in a 2-hour lecture, first of all. He has to do that. So when do you even get that small knowledge that you may get? When you're able to leave maybe your Instagram or your Facebook or your, like, all those types of social media, when you're able to leave that, that is when you get to this. First of all, there's so much attachment there that people cannot get to this. That is one thing. When they even get to this, what happens is they get like part of the knowledge. In a way, part, that means that if they're not sanyama of their senses, if they don't have control over their senses, what happens is they get all this information, all this jnana, even whether it is information like through jnana yoga, it's like activity through yoga, like itself. You'll get this strength, either mental or like physical or something, anyway, even becoming healthy. What happens after that is they stop there in a way because they have achieved something that they always wanted. When they do stop there, they can see that I have stopped here because of my fame, because of my pride, because of that. That is because of my desires. And if you have any of those, fame, pride, desire, attachment, then there is a point you'll stop at. You'll not be able to go past that. Now, I do understand that you only get past that, living all that. However, what happens is when you ascribe what you've gotten to as the highest, that is what is happening as wrong. When you ascribe the yoga, like just the physical, when it helps you physically, as the highest, or you ascribe like the intellectual as the highest, what happens then is that you get stuck there. And in so many traditions, there's been this problem of being stuck at that one particular point. Whichever tradition you choose, there is a point whereby sometimes you're going to get stuck. When Krishna is talking about the knowledge here, there is a way you have to leave all that and get to what Krishna is saying. That's when you realize what Krishna is saying. If you do not, you'll ascribe the highest to that, and yes, you will be able to do a lot of damage. That is what Paul was getting to, that you'll be able to do some damage to the society. What will happen then is that, well, people will know that damage is happening from this. So they will be able to navigate through it. Because if people do not know the damage that happens from it, they'll never be able to navigate through it. That is one thing that in general we realize, that even in bhakti now, we realize that there are damages that are being done. Even in jnana, we realize that there are those things that do not match out very well. So now people are able to get that. People are able to use that logic, that there are problems in both. There are problems in every facet you go in. Now you're able to navigate through because you can see the problems existent.
Thank you. So Yogeshwar, we have a few minutes. So of course, remaining ones are just Sanjay's summary. And then I was thinking of maybe, I asked people, what is a good way of wrapping it up, because we've got 4 meetups after that. So I was thinking for the first one, if we could just go through chapter by chapter and just do like key ideas in each of the chapter. You can talk about, chapter 1, chapter 2, and I will invite people to do the same. So what we can do is you present, just ideas from all the chapters one by one, covering all the chapters, and then people will say, okay, you know what, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that. What do you think? I think that would be a good way of doing a quick summary. What do you think?
Yes, that's nice. That's nice actually.
Okay, so we'll do that on next Thursday. For tomorrow, what we'll do is that it's probably going to be quite short, right? So we'll have plenty of time to talk about what you got from Gita. So especially people who have been, with us throughout, would love to hear what you got from this entire experience. And then if you would like, if you wish to take up the challenge, go ahead and, listen to Gita again. I recommend actually listening to it as well. I kind of go between reading it and listening to it. There are all kinds of recordings available. I think I've linked to one. It takes only about 2 hours to listen to the whole thing, and identify the key ideas that you get from each of the chapter. So just keep a note, chapter 4, these ideas, chapter 7, this ideas. And then Yogeshwar will present that on next Thursday, and you can bring up your questions. So that would be a good way of trying to, reintegrate everything. And then at some point, probably the week after that, we will do one session on Zen and the art of archery. And then we'll figure out what other what things to do in the other 2 remaining sessions. Sounds good? Okay, anybody else has any comments that they would like to make? Any thoughts about this plan? What do you think? I still can't find the verses 23 after. Oh yes, I am behind on publishing some of the videos. I have to, hopefully on the weekend, I'll go ahead and put them up. I'm a little behind on the YouTube. Right, anybody else? Evanique and Joe. Evanique.
I like the plan of going chapter by chapter because I feel like chapter 1 was so long ago. And when I listen to it, I feel like I gain something new every time. It just reminds me like when I was first reading the Gita and reading chapter 1 and not getting it, and then listening to it a few times and, having Yogeshwar talk about it and then going back and being like, oh, okay, now I see. So unfortunately, I won't be here tomorrow night, but I like the plan.
Sounds good. Joe, what do you think?
I mean, I like the plan as well. Quick question. Zen and the art of archery, is that next Friday?
We have to decide. No, it's going to be a week after that.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, otherwise I like the plan, because otherwise that would have been a little bit of a tight schedule to pull pull through. No, I like this a lot. I was actually doing a little bit of introspection today about what I've been taking from the Gita. So I've been thinking.
Please go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I mean, from going through the experience itself, having listened to Yogeshwar, and having just a better understanding of what it means to have faith, and from a different perspective, and it's having faith, and what it means to see the God in you, and see the God in myself, and then see the God in everyone else. That it's restored my fundamental belief in God. All right, so there's a universal principle that has restored. But there's also this, just when I was thinking about it today, going through each chapter, understanding what sacrifice means, understanding, the different concepts, the karma yoga, all the different ways, the different pathways to finding God. That has been something that really hasn't entered into my way of looking at the world up until the Gita. I mean, the Tao has its own way of looking at, the spiritual world, but I think that the Gita gives you context as to how you can find God, and it's not just one way. And it gives you, it's been a journey. I think that we could talk about it from a very intellectual level, but I see it much more as a spiritual level, where I've kind of gone through this journey, and ultimately I understand what it means to transcend, to transcend conventional wisdom, can transcend rational thinking. And I think the Gita has kind of given me those tools. I know that's pretty abstract, but I was just maybe my reflections weren't as clear as I needed them to be. So
Thank you.
Anyway.
Joe, really appreciate that.
I tried.
Thank you. So, I mean, see, this is the power of Gita. I mean, the thing that I find, I mean, not just for me, it's not just Gita, but Tao Te Ching and Gospel of John. All of them do something very similar. And it is showing an integrated human being, this connection between the core of your being, your mind, your emotions, and your actions, all flowing together. Each of them express them in a different way. Go ahead, Joe.
Now I remember kind of what I was thinking about a little bit more. And the idea of center and periphery, and what it really means to act from your core, and what it means to act from the periphery. The journey is to actually find God within yourself. It's to move away from external things that influence you, whether it be society, whether it be material goods, detaching from things, and finding out who you are at your core. And so we can talk about the different pathways that's done, whether it's through the yogas, through the gunas, how we all, that's the process by which we do it. But what it really means to get to your core and understand, and I think this chapter actually captures it quite well, is that what it means to look inside yourself and basically understand who you are and your authentic self, and then understand that you're acting from a place of authenticity and openness and your relationship with everybody else, as opposed to allowing the periphery to dictate who you are, your actions. And that's what I really thought about. It was more of a journey to understanding of more of an authentic self that you can see in that process. And obviously, like what you talked about as being a man of action, or a person of action, what it means to be able to act wisely. That was a little bit more clear. That's what I was thinking about earlier today.
Thank you, Joe. I think the idea of center and periphery is a very powerful way of capturing this, and the idea here is that center is simply eternal principles. It's the eternal principle that is there everywhere. So you see God in everything. You see the eternal principles operating when you look at the other person. You see the eternal principles operative when you look at nature. And that being able to go back and forth, it's a perspective change. It's saying the term that that Yogeshwar used, Brahma Dham. This world is the home of Brahma. It is the home of the eternal principle. So being able to go back and forth, and seeing that it is the same thing. When you are focused only on the periphery, then you are limited by the particular geography, particular time, particular habits that you have, and you lose contact with the center. And when you lose contact with the center, the thing next to you seems foreign, other, something else. But when you are in touch with the center, you see the same principles operate in the other person, in everything. So it gets all unified. It becomes one. Yogeshwar, if you want to comment anything, you're welcome to do that. No? Okay. Next up is going to be Evanik, followed by Paul. Evanik.
Just one thought. When Joe was talking about when you're acting from the center and acting from the periphery, I think the key is where you're acting from. And one thing that I've noticed since studying the Gita is that I notice it. I notice when I'm taking action from the center. I notice when I'm taking action from the periphery. But more importantly, I notice when I'm about to take action from the center and I'm about to take action from the periphery, and I can stop it.
Wow.
And I can say, where is this coming from? When I get those emotions, we were talking about thought, action, and emotion. When I have an emotion, where's that emotion coming from? Is it coming from an attachment to a person or a thing or a place or something, or even to the past? Or is it coming from the center? And just noticing it. I think just the action of noticing has helped me through this journey with the Gita, and noticing when I'm acting from a place of fear, or am I acting from a place of love? And being able to discernment is key. To being able to discern that has helped me grow spiritually and emotionally. And realizing the connection between the mind and the body and the spirit, and all that working from the core. It's just been huge. So thank you both.
Thank you, Evanik. This point about noticing, it's a huge point, because attention is the only asset that we have. That is the strongest asset that we have, what we pay attention to. And on this point, Indian mind has focused a lot. Training of attention, development of concentration. And as you do that, firstly, you notice where your attention is, and you notice things. And then you can choose to say, okay, I'm going to bring my attention back to the center, and I'm going to proceed from that, and I'm going to keep it there. And you learn to keep it for a longer and longer period of time through practice. And that is the direction of volition. It is the direction of attention, and practice of acting from your core. So that idea of, kind of that beginning of kind of noticing more and more things about you, and then that pause, because what happens is that when you're reactive, you just react to things, and then you are just acting from the periphery. The act of noticing enables you, that second of pause enables you to start acting from the center. So it is a very profound point. Thank you, Avanik. Next up is Paul.
Yeah, I like what you said, Avanik and Joe, that both. And Avanik, the focusing on noticing where in oneself a motivation or an intention is coming from. It's like if these studies that Srikant is having and going through this book helps me get farther with that, and Joe and Evanik and all of us, that's gigantic, because I think I liked your point, Yogeswar, about if somebody's applying all the knowledge they've gained, but then their intention is from the wrong place or a self-centered place, the people will notice that, and therefore that will be kind of self-correcting, or is a great point, but it puts a responsibility on us to watch for that. That's what I'm trying to get at, because it's very subtle, and it's been historically, these things, even faith itself has been co-opted for terrible causes. And if people don't see that they need to have this inner compass, an inner wisdom, an inner observing of what's going on in them, the beautiful impulses that these texts, all of them, John, the Gita, that they play on, can be taken advantage of by people whose intentions are coming from the wrong place with knowledge. And going back to the power you can actually have if you try to manipulate these forces toward your own goal in a large scale. So I'm just coming out of this night. I don't know why I've been so focused on this theme all night, but that pointing out when you see that in yourself, you're taking a set of knowledge and applying it in a direction that's not in your true self, and you're seeing it, other people trying to do that to you, even using faith, using Christianity, using whatever it is. It could be any of the faiths. It's just, it takes that inner attention that Srikant is saying is a big part of the Indian tradition, is the guard against that.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Yeah.
Paul. So this is actually very common. This is not just common with religions, but this is common to almost everything good that has ever been produced. It's the question of form and function. It's the function that creates the forms. And a whole bunch of people are simply saying forms are here, and they're going to use forms in a way which is actually ends up being stifling the function. It kills the function. So that's what rituals are about. Rituals gone wrong. It's not only true of religion, it is true of ideas, it's true of everything. Eternal vigilance is a requirement. A continuous, taking responsibility is a requirement of life. life is function. Life is function. And that means that you have to be alive. That means you have to be paying attention. And you have to be saying, no, this form, this is just form. This is just periphery. This is not the function. And so there has to be this eternal return that the Tao talks about. You can't be focused on 10,000 things. Yet the power of the function, though it is gentle, it may, as Tao says, it looks very gentle, it looks very simple, but it is enormously powerful. It's like water. Okay, it is not like rock, it is like water. It flows. And that's what function is like. And it produces forms. And absolutely. So, but I have tremendous, the thing is that the capacity of having function is there in all of us. And the only thing we can do is to keep that alive. And it is enormously powerful because that is the root of everything. All things were made through him. That spirit comes, it produces all of it. So it can be misused for sure. And you have to watch out for it. But it has tremendous power. The function has tremendous power. All right. I think Yogeshwar, you need to go, right? Okay. Yogeshwar, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This has been so incredible. And I'm just tremendously grateful. I think I have ended up learning Gita far more deeply than I had hoped to. It's been really, really good. And look forward to tomorrow. If you have any concluding comments on Gita, you can add them at the end. Then we will go chapter by chapter. All right. I want to keep it open for anybody else who wants to talk about anything else. I want to tell you about other meetups coming up. And so does anybody have any other comments? Firstly, we're starting Faust this Sunday at 5 p.m. And that's going to be really, really good. We are going to start a self-improvement, kind of a design your life series on Tuesday this Tuesday, right, Joe?
This Tuesday at 7.
This Tuesday at 7. And then I'm working on style of thinking to connect it up with the point here. The classic style is the one that integrates the physical and the conceptual. It uses the description of the physical as the base for grounding the conceptual. It's the most incredible thing. So if you want to find out more about it, I have a meetup on Sunday to give an overview of the classic style. The book is called Clear and Simple as the Truth. It's the best book on style that I have come across. It's very, very simple and clear. And I strongly recommend it. It's a 250-page book, very short book. And I just devoured it in about 48 hours with sleeping included, work included, somehow managed to do that. I'm reading it the second time now. I'm working on several exercises with friends here in New York to kind of get myself going into this new style. Evanik.
Oh, okay. So that meetup on Sunday is in New York, right?
No, that one is going to be on Zoom. So
okay.
What I want to do is I want to get as much of practice on this style as I possibly can. So I'm starting with a very small group of just friends here. You're welcome anytime you want to. If you're coming to New York, you're welcome anytime. So we do this on weekends, just like five to six of us. And Joe, you are also welcome anytime you want. It's on Saturdays, and reach out to me if you're coming. And I'm also talking to everybody. All kind of unsuspecting people are getting a dose of this new style, and I hope to build that up. The power of it is just incredible. For example, if you look at chapter 4 of Gospel of John, where Jesus just talks about, it's the Samaritan woman talking about water and bread and food and harvest, and just builds up these deep ideas of it. That's a good example of it. Mark Twain does a good job. Jefferson is a good example of it. Most of science writing is like that. Oh, great science writing. So what I'm going to do is that on Sunday at 9 p.m., I'm going to do a Zoom meetup so I can give a quick overview of this style. And so people can decide for themselves whether they want to put in the work, because it's a lot of work to change your style of writing, speaking, and thinking. That is a massive, massive amount of work. So only if people want to do it, then I'm going to on starting 13th, that is Thursday, 2 weeks from now, no, 3 weeks from now, when we finish with Gita, we're going to start with that on Thursdays. So that's the plan. All right, folks, thank you very much. See you soon. Bye.